We should add that many rites, which to the modern student look like propitiation, were in fact nothing of the kind, but were sympathetic magic. See the Golden Bough, page 541. But the communion with the loved dead, the divination, the feasting, the humor, the affirmation of life, most certainly yes. These are all in accord with Samhain point in the year's natural, human, and psychic rhythms. On the question of communion with the dead, it should always be remembered that they are invited, not summoned. Withdrawal and rest between incarnations is a stage-by-stage process. How long each stage lasts and what necessary experiences, voluntary or involuntary, are gone through at each stage, it is a very individual story, the whole of which can never be known by even the most intimate of the individual's still incarnated friends. So to force communication with him or her may well be fruitless or even harmful, and this, we feel, is the mistake many spiritualists make, however sincere and genuinely gifted some of their mediums are. So, as Raymond Buckland puts it, The Tree, the complete book of Saxon Witchcraft, page 61, quote, "Witches do not call back the dead. They do not hold seances. Such belongs to spiritualism. They do, however, believe that if the dead themselves wish it, they will return at the Sabbat to share in the love and celebration of the occasion," unquote. Any invitation to dead friends at Samhain or any other time should be made with this attitude in mind. As Stewart pointed out in What Witches Do, quote, "Of all the 8 festivals, this is the one where the Book of Shadows insists most emphatically on the great rite. If it is not possible at the time, the book says the high priest and high priestess should celebrate it themselves as soon as convenient, in token or if possible in reality. The point presumably is that since the Halloween ritual is intimately concerned with death and the dead, it should conclude with a solemn and intense reaffirmation of life," unquote. In the present book, we have assumed that the great rite is always possible at the Sabbats, at least in its symbolic form. But we feel that the Book of Shadows' insistence upon its particular significance at Samhain is valid and probably a genuine craft tradition. So we sought in our ritual for a way of giving it that special emphasis. Hence, the device of the circling coven, which for us achieves the desired effect. If the actual great rite is used, of course, the coven are out of the room, and any means of emphasis must be left to the high priestess and high priest enacting it. But the emphasis can still be, so to speak, transmitted to the coven on their return. Hence, the device of the high priestess and high priest blessing the wine and cakes immediately after the return, and the high priest administering them personally to each woman, and the high priestess to each man, instead of the usual circulation. We suggest that this personal administering should be carried out also if the great rite is symbolic. The preparation. The cauldron is placed in the center of the circle with glowing charcoal in a tin lid or other container inside it, and incense to hand. The usual incense burner the usual incense burner on or by the altar can be used at the appropriate moment, but a separate one is better. For the high priestess, make a simple white tabard of chiffon or net. Tyrolean net is as sold for curtains will do, though chiffon is prettier. The pattern is easy, 2 squares or rectangles stitched together along with the top and sides, but leaving neck and arm slits at the center of the top and the tops of the sides. A further refinement can be a 3rd square or rectangle of the same size, with its top edge stitched to the top edge of the other 2 along the shoulders and the back of the neck slit. This can hang behind like a cape, or be thrown up and forward over the head and veil and face as a veil. So let me say that last part again. This can hang behind like a cape, or be thrown up and forward over the head and face as a veil. It says see diagram and also plate 7, 11, 16, and 17. And we'll show you those plates later. Incidentally, we have made a selection of these chiffon tabards with cape veils and appropriate braid along the seams and hems in various colors for various ritual purposes. They can be worn either over robes or over the sky-clad body, are cheap and simple to make, and are strikingly effective. For the Lord of Misrule, make a wand of office, as simple or as elaborate as you like. Most elaborate is the traditional court jester stick topped by a doll's head and decorated with the little bells. Simplest is a plain stick with a rubber balloon, or more traditionally, an inflated pig's bladder tied to one end. It is laid ready beside the altar. Circle, altar, and cauldron are decorated with seasonal foliage and fruit, among which apples and, if possible, nuts on the twig should feature prominently. So here we have a picture of this frock that is put over the neck here, arm, veil. The simple cape and veil is shown here to make, simple to make. I made one of these when I joined my first coven many moons ago in the 90s. And this is an aside, I was an aside by me, excuse me. So continuing with the book, all Sabbats are feasts but Samhain. Again, all Sabbats are feasts, but Samhain, of course, especially so. Food and drink should be ready for the end of the ritual. Nuts should be included, even if you can get only shelled ones at the shop or packets of peanuts from the pub. The tradition of roasting them to read the future from the way they jump, a form of divination best approached in a light-hearted spirit, is practicable only if you have an open fire in the room. Personal footnote, we have a tabby cat called Susie, who, alone of our many cats, is our self-appointed familiar. She is very psychic and insists on being present at all rituals. The moment we cast the circle, she bangs on the door to be let in. She behaves very well, but has not learned to accept that the feast comes after the ritual. So we have to hide the food in a sideboard till the right moment. If you are in the same position, be warned. The ritual. The high priestess wears her white tabard for the opening ritual with the veil thrown back, if she has one. After the witch's rune, the high priest and priestess take up their athames. He stands with his back to the altar, she facing him across the cauldron. They then simultaneously draw the invoking pentagram of earth in the air with their athames towards each other, after which they lay down their athames, he on the altar, she by the cauldron. The high priestess scatters the incense on the charcoal in the cauldron. When she is satisfied that it is burning, she stands still, facing the high priest across the cauldron. She summons a male witch to bring one of the altar candles and hold it beside her, so that she can still read her words when later she draws her veil over her face. She declaims, quote, "Dread Lord of shadows, God of life and the giver of life, yet is the knowledge of thee the knowledge of death. Open wide, I pray thee, the gates through which all must pass. Let our dear ones who have gone before return this night to make merry with us. And when our time comes, as it must, O thou, the comforter, the consoler, the giver of peace and rest, we will enter thy realms gladly and unafraid, for we know that when rested and refreshed among our dear ones, we will be reborn again by thy grace and the grace of the Great Mother. Let it be in the same place and the same time as our beloved ones, and may we meet and know and remember and love them again. Descend, we pray thee, in thy servant and priest." Unquote. The high priestess then walks Diocil around the cauldron and gives the high priest a fivefold kiss. She returns to her place facing the high priest across the cauldron, and if her tabard has a veil, she now draws it forward over her face. She then calls on each woman, which in turn, let me just say this, she then calls on each woman witch in return, not W-H-I-C-H, but it says here W-I-T-C-H, so this is important. She then calls on each woman witch in turn by name to come forward and also give the high priest the fivefold kiss. When they have all done so, the high priestess directs the coven to stand around the edge of the circle, man and woman alternately, with the maiden next to the west candle. As soon as they are all in place, the high priestess says, quote, "Behold, the west is Amenti, the land of the dead, to which many of our loved ones have gone for rest and renewal on this night." We hold communion with them, and as our maiden stands in welcome by the western gate, I call upon all of you, my brothers and sisters of the craft, to hold the image of these loved ones in your hearts and minds, that our welcome may reach out to them. There is mystery within mystery, for the resting place between life and life is also Ker Arianhood, the castle of the silver wheel at the hub of the turning stars beyond the north wind. Here reigns Arianrod, the white lady, whose name means silver wheel. To this, in spirit, we call our loved ones, and let the maiden lead them, moving widdershins to the center, for the spiral path inwards to Ker Arianrod leads to night and rest, and is against the way of the sun." Unquote. The maiden walks slowly and with dignity in a widdershins anti-clockwise direction around the circle, spiraling slowly inwards, taking 3 or 4 circuits to reach the center. During this, the coven maintain absolute silence and concentrate on welcoming their dead friends. When the maiden reaches the center, she faces the high priestess across the cauldron and halts. The high priestess holds out her right hand at shoulder level over the center of the cauldron, with the palm open and facing to the left. The maiden places her own right palm flat against that of the high priestess. The high priestess says, quote, "Those you bring with you are truly welcome to our festival. May they remain with us in peace. And you, O maiden, return by the spiral path to stand with our brothers and sisters. But Diosil, for the way of rebirth outwards from Ker Arianrod, from Ker Arianrod is the way of the sun." Unquote. Let me say it again properly. Quote, "Those you bring with you are truly welcome to our festival. May they remain with us in peace. And you, O maiden, return by the spiral path to stand with our brothers and sisters. But Diosil, for the way of rebirth outwards from Ker Arianrod is the way of the sun." Unquote. Continuing with the book, maiden and high priestess break their hand contact, and the maiden walks slowly and with dignity in a Diosil clockwise spiral back to her place by the west candle. The high priestess waits until the maiden is in place and then says, quote, "Let all approach the walls of the castle." Unquote. Unquote. The high priest and the coven move inwards, and everybody, including the high priestess and the maiden, sits in a close ring around the cauldron. The high priestess renews the incense. Now is the time for communion with dead friends, and for this no set ritual can be laid down, because all covens differ in their approach. Some prefer to sit quietly round the cauldron, gazing into the incense smoke, talking of what they see and feel. Others prefer to pass round a scrying mirror or a crystal ball. Other covens may have a talented medium and may use her or him as a channel. Whatever the method, the high priestess directs it. When she feels that this part of the Sabbat has fulfilled its purpose, the high priestess unveils her face and orders the cauldron to be carried and placed beside the east candle, the quarter of rebirth. It should be put beside the candle, not in front of it, to leave room for what follows. The high priest now takes over the explanation. He tells the coven informally but seriously that since Samhain is a festival of the dead, it must include a strong reaffirmation of life, both on behalf of the coven itself and on behalf of the dead friends who are moving towards reincarnation. He and the high priestess will now therefore enact the great rite, as is the custom at every Sabbath. But since this is a special occasion, there will be slight differences to emphasize it. He explains these differences according to the form the great rite is going to take. If the great rite is symbolic, the chalice and athame will be placed on the floor, not carried, and the maiden and the rest of the coven will walk slowly deosil round the perimeter of the circle during the whole of the rite. When it is finished, high priest and high priestess will first give each other the wine in the usual way, but the high priest will then personally give the wine to each woman, after which the high priestess will personally give it to each man. They will then consecrate the cakes and give them out personally in the same way. The purpose of this, the high priest explains, is to pass on the life power raised by the great rite directly to each member of the coven. If the great rite is actual, once the maiden and coven have returned to the room, the high priest and high priestess will consecrate the wine and cakes and administer them personally in the same manner. Explanations over the great rite is enacted. Afterwards and before the feast, only one thing remains to be done. The high priestess fetches the Lord of Misrule's wand of office and presents it to a chosen man, with a man which, preferably one with a sense of humor. She tells him that he is now the Lord of Misrule, and for the rest of the Sabbath is privileged to disrupt the proceedings as he sees fit, and to take the mickey out of everyone, including herself and the high priest. The rest of the program is given over to the feasting and the games. And if you, like us, are in the habit of putting out a little offering of food and drink afterwards for the seed or the local equivalent, on this night of all nights, make sure it is particularly tasty and generous. And that is the end of chapter 10. On page 136 is the ending of it. And it began on page 121 and ended on page 136, leading on into what will be the 11th chapter next time for Yule. And now, what we're going to do is we're going to now show you some of the plates that they mentioned, some of the pictures that they mentioned in the book. I'm going to show you that in a moment here. All right, continuing, now I'm going to share with you some of the plates, which is the photographs. It mentioned it was taken by Stewart Farrar, and we're going to show you some of the Samhain, October 31st rituals. So the one that is pertinent to this would be this one here in the corner here, where we have everyone gathered round a candle in the center. Looks like it's sitting on top of like a cake almost. You see there's a woman here, another woman here, a man, another woman here, and they're all dressed in the beautiful Wiccan attire, witchcraft attire. Very lovely. And then the next one is it's called it has to do with doing a ritual outside when privacy and weather permits. That would be this one here, where the lady's holding the sword outside. It says, when privacy permits, outdoor rituals are better. Let me see if it said anything underneath. For plate number 7, no, it didn't really say anything that I can see for plate number 7. Then we have here plate number, I believe this is 16. Yes, it says, this is where the goddess presides over the death of the sun. Number 16, but that's really for Yule, and it says the goddess mourns the death of the sun god. So they were referring to this, they're referring to what's going to happen next time in Yule, because they told us to, in the Samhain, October 31st chapter, they told us to look at this plate, because they wanted to make a point about the death of the sun god that's coming at Yule, which would be the next chapter we're going to go over next time, chapter 11. Okay, so that's the death of the sun god, with the goddess presiding, and that's at Yule. This is similar to the coven I was in. We had one of these, and we used to pass that around, and whoever got that would be we all would pass it around. Everybody took a turn being the high priest or high priestess, and they would have full responsibility for everything, and that they gave that to us. Then we would pass to someone else the next time. So we all had a chance to be in charge, so that everybody could really understand how hard it is to be in charge of something like this. It's one thing to visit these types of rituals and participate. It's another thing to run the whole thing. And to make sure everybody shows up and make sure everybody gets there on time and does what they're supposed to do, and provides and puts out all the money for all the, all the accoutrement, all the cakes and ales, and and all the wine and drink and meat and all of that, and provides the place and provides the tools. Everybody should know how much effort and how much but it's also extremely rewarding with that said. So everybody got to be the head of that coven house. It was called the Others, and that was back in 1990. Anyway, this is number 17, back to our book. This is the 17th plate here, where we have consecrating the wine. So it shows the wine being consecrated by this gentleman here and this woman here. A consecration of the wine in the chalice in their ritual attire. All right, now I'm going to close our circle. When we opened the circle, we went, because it's a celebratory circle, a Sabbat or Esbat or holiday, a celebratory circle, we opened it going in a clockwise direction from to east, south, then west, then north. That's clockwise or diocil. And then that was after we rang the bell. So first we opened by ringing the bell, creating the time, and then going in a clockwise diocil, we opened the sacred space. We created the sacred space. Now we invoked the archangels, the four archangels of the four watchtowers, and we also invoked the four elementals. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do everything, we're going to do everything the opposite way. We're going to go Widdershins, or counterclockwise, starting in the north, ending in the east, and then we're going to dismiss the archangels and the elementals, and also we invoke above and below as well, God and Goddess above and below, and we're going to dismiss them, the Shekinah and Jesus the Christ, and we're going to dismiss them, and then we're going to ring the bell 3 times to end the space. Now, if you're doing a magic circle and not a celebratory circle, this is an aside by me. This wasn't in the book that I read here. This is an aside by me. What I had learned, or what we had done in our circles a long time ago in the 90s, is what we used to do is, when we did a magic circle, because we were going to do magic, we would open the circle going Widdershins or counterclockwise, break down reality. Then we would do our magic, and sometimes we do a separate invocation inside of that, breaking down of the circle, and then we would go back the other way to close it, to build matter. What we usually did, though, was we might have done two circles, one within the other, going opposite ways, in order to create a space, invoke, and have guardians, and then go Widdershins, break down reality, do magic, and then go diocil, rebuild the magic, and then dismiss the guardians and go do everything the way it's done in the celebratory circle. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we would do circles within circles, sometimes going the opposite ways for a specific effect. That might be a little too complicated for this particular video, but let's just end the way we end a celebratory circle. It was just an interesting tidbit I thought I'd give you about doing magic. because you always want to have guardians, so you know it's good to have maybe 2 circles when you're doing something like that, go in the opposite directions. So anyway, I do want to say one thing too before I finish this. Since this is a long video and we're going to have to cut it into 2 videos anyway, I'm going to add this one little aside. I did have a ritual that I performed with another witch friend who, when we did the circle, it was a circle that we were doing. She had done me a favor. I was having trouble at work with a certain person, and she helped me do a ritual so that the person would stop bothering me, and the circle worked very well. The ritual worked very well. But I'd like to say that during that circle, again, this was a while back. This was maybe around 1996. During that circle, a light blue colored sprite appeared in the air, and we both saw it when we did the invocations, and it was very bright, and we saw it, and it was a definite manifestation of magic, and it was like a light blue color. It was very bright. It was one of those beautiful things I've ever seen, very crystalline looking, and neither of us, had tried to do anything like that. It just appeared, and it was visible. So I just wanted to say that I have seen that kind of magical, and I've seen a lot of rituals work. They do work. Because you're basically reprogramming your subconscious mind. And the human subconscious and unconscious are very powerful things. All right. Now to dismiss the 4 archangels and the 4 elementals. So starting in the north, we would like to now thank the Archangel Uriel, Archangel of the Watchtower of the North, and the cold, dry winds of the north, and the gnome elementals of earth. Thank you for joining and lending your power and magic to our circle. Please, you may depart our circle now, and please come again. We ask that you would please come again when we so bid you. But thank you. We now go to the west. Here in the west. Okay. To the mighty Archangel Gabriel. Beautiful Archangel of the Watchtower of the West, and the cold, wet winds of the West, and the undying elementals. Thank you for lending your emotion, your love to our circle. You may depart now, and we thank you for joining our circle and lending your magic, and we hope and plead that you would, and supplicate that you would be there at our bidding again when we do another circle. Thank you. We also, from the angel, would ask that the Archangel Michael, Archangel of the south and the hot, dry winds of the south, depart, and that the salamanders depart from our circle. Thank you for lending your magic and passion and willpower to our circle. And we supplicate that you will come again if we bid you, and we thank you for lending your magic and power to our circle. Now moving on to the Archangel of the east, the divine physician, the Archangel Raphael, Archangel of the Watchtower of the east, Archangel of the warm, moist winds of the east, Archangel who rules over the sylphs of the east and the sylphs of the air elementals. Thank you, Archangel Raphael, for joining our circle and lending your magic and your intelligence to our circle and the sylphs of the imagination of thought. Thank you for your magic and for lending to us your mind. You may depart now from our circle, and we supplicate that you will come again at our bidding and join our circle and help us to lend your intelligence and skill to our circle once again. You may depart now, and thank you for lending your powerful mind and intelligence and intellect to our sacred circle. Thank you. And now, above, We thank the Spirit of the Father and the Shekinah glory at zenith above. Thank you for lending your life to our circle. We supplicate that you will come again when we bid you to do so. Thank you. You may now depart, and we thank you and hope you will join us again next time. And below us, Nader, we thank the mother, the great mother of matter, and her son, Jesus Christ, who joins her, who she is always fecund with. And we thank you for joining our circle and for lending your manifestation powers to our circle and your magic. You may depart now, and we bid that you would join us again next time we have a circle, next time we create a circle. You may depart now, and thank you for lending your magic to our circle. So mote it be. Blessed meet, blessed part, and blessed meet again, or merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Blessed be. And now we're going to ring the bell, and we're going to release the time, the sacred time. We've undone the sacred space, Widdershins. Now we're going to undo the sacred time and come out of our sacred time. Thank you, everyone, for joining our reading, and stay tuned for next time for our Yule installment from 8 Sabbats for Witches by Janet Stewart Farrar. This is the Goodly Christian Witch. Thank you, and bye-bye now.